Today's daf is daf Pei Tes, and we're up to the top line after the two dots. Chatzi log, the Mishnah says, shemen litoda. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Rabbi Akiva Omer, Ma tabelomar bashemen bashemen. In the pasuk it says, V'kriv al zevach hatoda chalos matzos blulos bashemen. That's one bashemen. Urekike matzos meshuchim bashemen. Again bashemen. So why the repetition of the word bashemen? The word bashemen is mentioned once with regard to the chalos, right? Because we're talking about now lachmei toda that fit into three different categories. So we've had bashemen with regard to category number one, which is called chalos. Then the Torah repeats the word bashemen with regard to rekikim, which is a second category. And the Brisa wants to know why the redundancy. That's Rabbi Akiva's drasha. And Rabbi Akiva's answer to this question is Ilu lo nemar el bashemen echad. Had the Torah only used the word bashemen once, which means that you require a log of shemen, so then I would assume that the 30 chalos, being unleavened toda loaves, altogether would require a log of shemen. Isayisi omer hareu kechol hamenachos lelog. I would have said that just like in all menachos, all we need is one log of shemen, so too, I would say that in the case of lachmei toda, all you need is one log. Achshav shekosav bashemen bashemen. Havi ribui achar ribui. Again, the Gemara is going to analyze this. What do you mean ribui achar ribui? Where's ribui achar ribui? Because it says it twice. There's only one extra one. And ribui achar ribui is a miut if there are two extra ones. So we'll see that question in any event. Is miator kosuv lechatzi log? Right? The Mishnah, as we saw, says that for the Toda you need a chatzi log. And I would have thought that the Toda should be equated or compared with all the Menachos, where you need a full log. So the miut, which is a result of a double ribui of the word bashemen, is going to teach you that all you need is chatzi log. So Gemara asks immediately, ribui achar ribui? This is not a ribui achar ribui. Chad ribui. There's one extra word bashemen. Ella, so therefore the Gemara says rewrite the Brisa and rewrite the drasha. Ilo nemar bashemen kol ik. I didn't even need the first bashemen. Why? Hayisi Omer, my intuition would have told me at square one that arei kechol hamenachos lelog. I would have assumed that you need a log of shemen. Like all menachos require a log of shemen. So therefore, I didn't need the word bashemen at all. I would have already assumed from the get-go that the Toda, like any other mincha, requires shemen. And therefore, the first one is already redundant, and then bashemen, a second redundancy, because the Torah repeats the word bashemen. So the Miyah tells you instead of requiring the log of all menachos, you split it in half, and all you need is a chatzi log. Now go back to the Brisa. Yochol yehi chatzi log zeh mischalik l'shlosha minim. Right, we said that there were three categories of chalos. Chalos means unleavened bread. It's a little bit tricky because we think of a chal as something that's leavened. But anyway, so you have chalos, you have rekikin, and you have revicha. Okay, So rikikin are translated here as wafers, and revicha is translated as scalded flour loaves. I mean, we had discussions about this in the past. So we would assume that the requirement of a chatzi log of oil should be divided into three equal portions for the three types of chalos, which means 1/6 of a log for each type. But when the Torah specifically focuses our attention, biravicha, that's where it says bashemen, right? We go back to the pasuk. It says v'soles murbeches chalos blulos bashemen she'ein tamid lomar. Why did the Torah have to bother adding bashemen to the revicha? And the answer is that riba shemen l'revicha to teach us that when you divide up the hatzi log into three portions, don't divide into three equal portions with 1/6 of a log for each type, but rather 1/6 of a log for chalos, 1/6 of a loaf for a kikin. That's 2/6, and then you're left with 2/3. One second, I don't know, Steve, you'll correct me here on the math for a second, but 1 second. Maybe chatzi log shemen v'chotzehu. I'm sorry, it should be an eighth. Let me see if I got it right now. 1 second. Maybe chatzi log shemen v'chotzehu. So you divide a chatzi log into half, which gives you a quarter, and that quarter will now be divided through to the rikikin and the chalos, each one getting an eighth. So if each one gets an eighth, just 1 second, let me just see if I got it right here. Oh, so each one gets an eighth, so that's 2/8, which is the equivalent of 1/4, and then you're left with 1/4, which is half of the half a log for the revucha. So that's called chetzia l'revucha. Again, you're talking about chetzia of a chatzi log, because chatzi log is for all three categories. Amar lo Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah, he's going to disagree. I don't care how many times the Torah would repeat the word Bashem, and I have halach l'Moshe b'Sinai. Eini shomer, I'm not interested. Elachatzi log shemen litoda, for all the loaves of the Toda, whether it's chalos, rikikin, or revucha, ureviyas shemen lenazir, v'acharis hayom shebeinidu lid halach l'Moshe b'Sinai. In other words, we have halach l'Moshe b'Sinai regarding the chatzi log for the lachmei Toda, and we have halach l'Moshe b'Sinai regarding a revius shemen l'nazir. Again, we're talking about the nazir at the completion of his nazirus. He brings 20 loaves, 10 chalos, 10 rikikin, together with the ayil, and these loaves require 1/4 of a log in total. And between nida and nida, we have the 11 days of ziva, where if she sees dam, we assume she's on her way to become a zava. She's a zava ketana. If she sees 3 times consecutively, she becomes a zava gedol. All this halach l'Moshe b'Sinai. Now, the Mishnah says, balog hoya moded. What did he do with that liquid measure of a log? That was for all the Menachos. Now, according to the Tanakama, whose opinion is recorded first in the Mishnah, the mincha requires 1 log per isaron. So if a man takes upon himself 60 isronos for a pledged mincha, he's going to have to bring 60 login. So he's going to have to use that log and measure it out 60 times. Whereas Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says that no matter how large it is, even if it's 60 Yisronos, all you need is one single log of oil. Tana Rabbanan, what's the yesod of this machlokes? The mitzora on iksiv, right? A mitzora is a carbon yored, and if the mitzora is very poor, then it says three words: isaron, bolul, velok. What does that teach you? Limed al isaron shetoun lok. Okay, divrei chachamim. So therefore, according to chachamim, what we're going to say is that every isaron requires a log of shemen for that isaron. It's superfluous for the Torah to state that the mincha of a poor mitzorah requires an isaron of fine flour. This could have been inferred for the previous verse, where a wealthy mitzorah also brings an isaron. Therefore, the Chachamim, right, we're going to get to other Tanoim in a minute, they expound this verse as indicate that all menachos require one log of oil per isaron of flour. Do you follow that? That the log here in the pasuk is referring to the isaron. Each isaron requires its own log. But Rav Nechemia, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Homer, they hold afilu minchas shisha asorim ein lehem ela luga. Why? Shenemar, and this was the pasuk that we saw in the Mishnah. Lemincha velog shemen. Lemincha means one mincha. So whatever the total isronos and flour and the volume of flour for that one mincha, all you require is log shemen, one log shemen for all of it. Now the Gemara is going to go back and forth with these psukim. The Rabbi Nechem, Rabbi Lezer, what are they going to do with high isaron bolul v'log, my avdibei? What are they going to do with that? I mean, that teaches that every isaron needs its own log shemen. Hahula gufa, that I need for the pasuk itself, for the din itself, to call Omar Achmana Laisi chad isar. Right? The Torah is telling you that how much do you need for a mincha? How much flour do you need? Fine flour. You need an isar. It was necessary for the Torah to specify that a poor mitzorah brings a mincha that contains an isar, because you could have thought that maybe he doesn't have to bring in even an isar and he's so poor. The idach. What about the chachamim who derive from the pasuk bol isar and bol log that each isar needs a log, right? Don't we need the pasuk legufe? Legufe lo tzorach. Why? There are two types of mitzorah, right? There's a wealthy mitzorah, that's an ashir, and there it says shlosha karbonos u'shlosha esronim, meaning each carbon requires an isaron. Is hacha, now we're talking about the poor mitzorah. The chad carbon, he only brings one carbon. Is chad isar, he only brings one isar. But he has to bring an isar. You can't get away with less than isaron. And that's what I derive legufe. The idach, what are we going to do according to Rabbi Nechemia and according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov? Itzrich. What was the Havamina here? That a mitzorah ani would not bring an isaron? Yeah. The Torah has compassion, this poor guy. Lasuya Vidalus is Emololi boy mincha klal. Maybe he doesn't have to bring a carbon mincha at all. No. We never had a Havamina according to the Rabbanon that a poor mitzorah would be completely potter from a mincha. And therefore it would be evident that a poor mitzorah brings a mincha of one isaron of flour, like we saw in the mitzorah ashir. And the pasuk that states this law, which we would have learned in any event, even without the pasuk, that pasuk is superfluous, and therefore we can expound it. But now we have the pasuk of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Rabbanan, what are they going to do? Mincha v'log shemen my avidle. It seems that all you need is one log shemen for the entire mincha, and even if he brings 60 yisronos, it's one mincha, and therefore it requires one log. The Gemara answers, "Hahula misnadev mincha shelo yifchos midover haton log umayniu isara." Meaning that this phrase lemincha v'log shemen, according to the Rabbanon, is regarding a minchas nidava, a person who donates to bring a nidava and wants to tell you log shemen, and he requires a full mincha, which means that he's saran of flour. He cannot bring less flour and he cannot bring less oil. Ve'idach, what about Rabbi Nechemia and Rabbi Eliezer? Tarti shamet minyan, we could derive both. Okay, fine. Now we go on to the next part of the Mishnah. Shisha lepar, arba la'ayil, shlosha lekeves. Minon, tichsiv, v'niskeyem chatzi ahin yelepar. So now we're going to figure out how much of a volume of liquid is a hin, and then we're going to divide it in half for a par, into a third for a ram, and a quarter for a lamb. Hin tresar luge havyan. A hin is 12 lugin. How do we know this? Tichsiv shemen zayis hin. Uksiv shemen mishkas kodesh yeli lidoros sechem. Zeh, right, the pasuk zeh in mishkas, shemen mishkas kodesh, is bigmatria tresar havyan. So we know that a hin is equal to 12 lugim, and therefore we know that a half a hin for a bull is 6 lugim, a third of a hin for a ram is 4 lugim, and a quarter of a hin for a lamb is 3 lugim. Shloshu mechza lemenorah chatzi lug lechol ner. Right, we said that each ner has to have a chatzi lug of shemen. Total for the entire menorah of 7 neros is 3.5 lugim. Minani miliana, we know son rabbanon may erev ad boker. The lamp has to be lit from the evening until daybreak. Tein la midah shetei dolekes voleches me'erev ad boker. And the Chachamim figured out that the amount of oil that you need to last from the evening till daybreak is going to be a chatzi log of oil. So it can remain burnt the entire night. Dover acher, me'erev ad boker, ein lecha avoda sheksher me'erev ad boker el zu bilvad. B'shiru chachamim chatzi log me'urta tzafra. Half a lug of oil will last you through the entire night. Ika diamri milamala lemata shiaru, vika lemala, vika diamri mimata lemala shiru. Did they go from smaller amounts to larger, or from larger to smaller? Man diamri mimata lemala shiru. If you say they assess the menorah oil from smaller to larger, and that is a Torah chasal b'monim shel Yisrael, and therefore the Rabbanan say, don't begin with a larger amount of oil, because then any extra oil will remain in the lamp through the morning, and it cannot be reused. The Torah did not wish to burden the communal treasury with this added expense. In the Beis Hamikdash, we don't do things in a skimpy kind of a way. Okay, Rabosli, so officially the shir is over, but if you have a few more minutes, at least we'll get to Peites Amid Beis. As I said, we're trying to catch up. The Mishnah says, with regard to the Nesachim, right, there are Nesachim that have to be brought with a Karban Ola or a Karban Shlomim. Is ma'arvin nischei parim b'nischei elim. We can mix together the nesachim of parim with the nesachim of elim. You can combine the minchas nesachim that accompany a bull korban with those that accompany a ram korban. The reason this may be done is that both types of menachos contain the same ratio 2 lugim of shemen per isaron of flour. Niskei kvasim, kiniksei kvasim, the nesachim of lambs, you could combine with the nesachim of lambs because the carbon requires 3 isronos of oil for every single isaron of flour. So you can combine, for example, the nesachim of a tamid with the nesachim of a musaf, because both are the same, basically the same consistency. And the Mishnah continues here on Daf Pei Tesom and Beis, Shel Yom v'Shel Emesh, right? You can combine today's with yesterday's. Okay, this is a sugi that we had back on Daf Tes Vav, that you could bring a carbon on one day and the Nesach could come even 10 days later. So our Mishnah refers to the case where someone initially offered a carbon without the Nesach. The next day he brought a second carbon and he brings it with 2 sets of Nesachim, one for today and one for the previous day. And these 2 Nesachim can be mixed together, provided that they both contain the same oil to flour ratio, meaning they're both lambs, they're both rams, both bulls. But if one was a bull and one was a ram, then the Nesachim still could be combined, as we saw before. Right? You cannot combine the mincha of a bull or a ram, which is a thick and dry, to the mincha of a lamb offering. The former, meaning the case of a bull or a ram, requires only 2 lugim of oil per isaron of flour, whereas in the case of a lamb, we require 3 lugim of oil for a single isaron of flour. And if you were to mix them together, these 2 types of menachos, the mincha of the bull or ram would absorb some of the oil from the mincha of the lamb. Consequently, the mincha of the lamb would be lacking oil. The mincha of the bull or ram would contain excessive oil. And therefore, in bololo elu bifnei atzma ve'elu bifnei atzma ksherim, but he cannot bring them together, only separately. Im ad shelo bol pasul. If they get mixed together before he combined their ingredients, they are invalid. Hakeves haboima omer afal pisha minchaso kfula is lo hoyu nisachim krum. Okay, this is where we'll have to stop for today. So we're still a little bit behind, but every day we inch up a little bit further. So let me wish you a wonderful Shabbos, Parsha Shmini.